You've reached the Signal Watch, movies, television, comics, and more. I'm your host, Ryan Steens. Join me and our cadre of co-contributors as we examine cultural artifacts of the 20th century, boldly explore the 21st, and try to put it all in perspective. Stay tuned. We're gonna try to make this work. Everybody, Happy New Year and welcome back to the Signal Watch. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Steens, and with me today is...
Hello, Simon Day. Happy New Year.
And Simon, you had picked a movie I will be candid and say I had not heard of for our first movie of 2023.
Yeah, well, we kind of mentioned it, I think, after we did the Wild Geese, because I think a lot of the personnel on Wild Geese kind of transferred over to the Seawolves, made in 1980, based on the 1978 book The Boarding Party, directed by Andrew V. McLaglen, who I think was a Brit who was based in the States, and starring Gregory Peck, Roger Moore, and David Niven.
Yeah, I was a little surprised to hear Gregory Peck trying on his best British accent. It was
was it a
surprise?
I didn't notice. I honestly didn't notice. I was like, "Is that what he's supposed to be doing?" Okay.
Yeah, it was coming and going through the film. I don't want to pick on Gregory Peck, but he's kind of like America's dad. So I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, this is some interesting casting." When he showed up.
Well, this was kind of his renaissance, wasn't it? Off The Omen. The Omen kind of brought him back to box office power, and I remember him picking up some interesting roles after that, like The Boys from Brazil, which we should also do because that's good fun, and this and MacArthur. So he was doing. It's almost like, it's like my last chance to do some boys' own war movies. So I'm going to get in there and have a bit of fun and wave a machine gun around. And fight some very old stuntmen. Very old stuntmen.
Yeah. It's
like View to a Kill again. that's what it reminded me of. Where you get those old out of shape stuntmen from.
Yeah, it has Roger Moore, who I was surprised by 1980. He was, I guess, with the cast that was there as the stars, he slid right in. Okay, he's a star among stars.
Well, apparently they were trying to get back Burton and Harris, so they actually wanted like a fully fledged Wild Geese reunion for those three main characters. So I think Burton would have been the Peck character, and I guess like Harris would have been David Niven, which I think Harris would have been too young, to be honest. But and it makes me laugh when I watch this now that Roger Moore's like the sexy young one, and I'm like, he's still older than us. He's still older than us now, but he's like, I do the running around while the old fellas sit on the boat. So it's kind of funny.
But
he was doing Bond. This was halfway through his Bond midterm in his Bond career as well, I guess.
Yeah, and that's why it surprised me so much that at this point he was kind of willing to do it. But then I thought about kind of the star power of Niven and Gregory Peck, and it made a lot more sense.
Also, if you think about it from Roger Moore's point of view, and I think this is why he did the Wild Geese as well, which is, I mean, he was best mates, Roger Moore, with David Niven, and also with Patrick Macnee, who plays Yogi. So really, it's like a chance to go to, I don't know, Portugal for 3 months and hang out with your mates and probably drink lots of wine and tell lots of showbiz stories. Um, so I'm sure that would be like that sounds fantastic. That's like a free holiday, basically.
Yeah, so we should talk about that. Like, as an American, I was totally unfamiliar with the story this is based on, and was frankly very confused at one point, because so
So it's the Calcutta Light Horse, who are a retired unit because they last served in the First World War. This is set in the Second World War. And there's a German merchant ship that I guess is in harbour, but is transmitting the coordinates of where Allied warships are so that U-boats can sink them. So the plan is send these old guys and pretend they're like businessmen who are drunk, you know, doing a dare to board the ships and knock out the radio and blow up the ships and hopefully sink them at the same time.
yeah, the thing that threw me off was that I did not know Portugal had ever occupied any territory in India. Like, that was news to me, like watching this. And so
they Goa, isn't it? Isn't it
yeah,
Goa? It's
yeah.
neutral territory, isn't it?
So yeah, so that's where the ships are docked, is like technically we would think of it now as India. It's
Yeah.
and it was a Portuguese province at the time, which I didn't know. And they referred to it when they first headed up there as, well, let's go up to Portugal. So I thought they had gone to Portugal. And then there's all these Indian people running around. And I was like,
Yeah.
are they trying to pass off Indian people as Portuguese? Like, what? I don't understand this.
The worst extras ever in a film.
So I quickly Googled what was going on and settled into the film. So.
And it's also a bit like the Wild Geese system. So we talk about the Wild Geese. So this does have a lot of personnel that carried over. Roger Moore's obviously front and center, but it's the same director, the same producer. You've even got Maurice Binder doing the titles, the credits, which he was obviously did a lot of the Bond credits. Same composer, Roy Budd, doing the music. And I think about 6 to 8 of the actors are in both movies. I noticed the guy who played Sandy the Sergeant Major in Wild Geese, and also the guy who played Whitty, the gay medic in the Wild Geese, was the guy trying to keep the engine going in this. Mm-hmm. So a lot of crossover there. And and to be honest, I feel like Wild Geese packs a bit more of a punch. It's a bit more R-rated, with the swearing and with Richard Harris's death. Spoiler. And whereas this one's a bit more family friendly, a bit more PG, a bit more cuddly, maybe. Although it kind of still had its moments.
I mean, I definitely think it was a movie that the guys who starred in it thought they were making it for their peers.
Yeah.
Of like, great if everybody else enjoys this rollicking adventure, but we are making this, and so I mean, and the story is not it's not guys with machine guns until the last 20 minutes of the film.
No. But
so it's just a very different kind of thing, yeah.
Well, it jumps through all the hoops, though, doesn't it? Like the Dirty Dozen, where it's like, we're going to recruit them. We got this crazy plan. Then we're going to recruit them and interview them. Then we're going to, steal something that we need. And then we're going to the plan's going pretty good, but then there's going to be a couple of hiccups we didn't think about. So it's kind of we've seen this definitely before. Even kind of going back to Guns and Navarone, which is kind of a reunion for that as well, with, I guess, David Niven and Gregory Peck.
But yeah, it's this interesting thing of, it is these older guys kind of coming out of sort of like I don't know what they're doing in India, frankly, because it is
hanging around a country club playing polo.
Yeah, in the middle of wartime. Like, it's like 1943. England's been at war for a while at this point.
Well, I'm guessing they must live there, and I guess they're retired. So,
Yeah.
but they're all kind of kicking their heels. They're like, I wish we could. It's a bit like Dad's Army. It's like, wish we could do something towards the war effort, you know?
Yeah. Um, and so they do the cool recruitment scene of kind of like who's in, and like literally every guy is ready to roll.
Apart from Trevor Howard's got his dicky ticker, but Roger Moore says he can come with me and get killed horribly later.
But yeah, I mean, and Roger Moore does get a whole storyline that when I did my Googling about the real thing, I was like, I don't think any of this actually happened.
I love at the end where it has photos of the real people next to the actor, and they're all much more ugly than the actors. Like Roger Moore is basically like his real counterpart is like this little fat bald guy. It's like doesn't look like Roger Moore, but his family loved the fact that Roger Moore played him. Um, but well, you know, when I was a kid, I obviously tolerated the love story in this because I was a Bond fan. Um, but now I think that's my favorite part. Actually, I find a bit like Eye of the Needle, which is another kind of wartime, I guess like romance, but also, spy movie. Um, I think between, Roger Moore and Barbara Kellerman, as Mrs. Cromwell, I think, that's actually very well done and very well acted by both of them. Because, you have the kind of like, meeting and the flirting, and then obviously, it's Roger Moore, right? So he gets her into bed pretty fast. Um, but then, I think he is genuinely falling in love with her. But then, of course, she's the worst person to fall in love with because she's the double agent who's been killing people.
Yeah, and they do play it kind of to where I couldn't quite tell if she actually was maybe a little interested or at least found him charming while she was using him or whatever her plans were to get close to him.
She did
Um,
seem genuinely kind of upset that she was going to have to kill him at the end.
yeah.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I agree. I mean, and part of it is I think that part was entirely fabricated. So they were able to kind of
yeah.
take a little
I'm
bit
pretty
of
sure that
like
didn't happen.
a little bit of Bond seduction and whatnot, and the sexual
You know,
going.
you know what stood out to me, which I don't know what this is about my brain, but I was like, I'm amazed the Bond producers let him wear a couple of tuxedos, which I don't
Oh,
think from Dalton onwards, or definitely from Brosnan, I don't think the actors who played Bond were allowed to wear a tuxedo in any other films. Um, but I'm like, what gets away with wearing two here? He gets one damaged and covered in blood, so he puts a different color one on. So I'm like, oh wow. But yeah, like so I don't know. Maybe that law from the Bond people came about because of this film. Who knows?
could have been.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even like him meeting her in a casino, in a backroom casino, and their like repartee over the game that they're playing. I can't even remember at this point what they were playing. Um,
Yeah.
but
Snap.
it was all very kind of like Bond era or a Roger Moore era Bond. And that was fine.
Wasn't much of
But
a
I can
stretch.
also see why after that the Broccoli's would have been like, maybe we
Yeah.
don't let people go make not Bond movies. It had enough other stuff going on that it wasn't a distraction. But if
Yeah.
I was a Bond producer, I probably would be like, whoa, what did he go do? So
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little bit too close to yeah, kind of like, well, I guess like yeah, don't piss on your doormat kind of thing.
yeah.
Um well, Barbara Kellerman, I think, plays it really well. Although there's this one bit that always makes stands out to me where the guy breaks into the room and I guess she screams and she suddenly goes really working class, her voice. And I don't know if that's on purpose or that's just the actress, but that bit always really stands out to me because until then she's been pretty posh.
Hmm.
And and I don't know if is she supposed to be originally German or she's just a double agent? I guess she's just a double agent. Um, because we never find out about the husband, how he died or whatever. I mean, he could have been German for all we know, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, but then it's also like, or she just could have German sympathies. But that always stands out to me. And the other bit is later on where Rog kind of gets booby trapped when he goes back to the house and the guys try to kill him. Um, and I love the Indian kind of like he's not really a waiter. I guess he's like a houseboy or something or servant, but he does the worst trying to running away ever. Where he's basically almost like, oh, I tripped a bit, I fell badly. It's like that was a terrible attempt at getting away. Actually, those
Yeah,
two bits stand down made me laugh.
yeah, it's there was definitely a clearly you can outsprint these guys or outsprint more. So, you gotta we have
Maybe
to make it viable.
it was overcompensating for Roger Moore's age a bit too much there. Uh, but yeah, no, I mean, like it's a fun, it's a very boys' own. It used to be called kind of boys' own. I don't know if that's still a term you're allowed to use or anybody uses,
I think
but
so.
it's
Yeah,
like,
I do think Boyzone. I mean, I think the phrase has kind of fallen out of fashion just because they don't make stuff like
yeah.
that as much anymore. But it
I mean, I guess the last thing I can really remember that was kind of like that was maybe Inglourious Bastards, Tarantino kind of thing, or
yeah,
maybe the
he
Monument.
kind of appropriated it for his own needs.
Yeah, we used to have lots of stuff like Where Equals Dare, and lots of these movies where it's like a bunch of guys on a kind of probably not most of them are going to come back from this mission, and and maybe maybe some of them are trying to redeem themselves for past failures or whatever, or they're just like over the hill and knackered, really.
Yeah, and that was kind of one of the things with this movie that was very different from Wild Geese was the vast majority of the supporting cast who came along with them on the boat, their motivation's all the same. You're
Yeah,
not like, oh, this guy's doing it for the money so he can retire, and this guy's doing it for that. It's like, no, they're all
that's a
former
really good point.
soldiers who want to have one last go and have a poke at the enemy when they've been told to sit on the sidelines. They
Yeah,
react to it differently, but it does create a certain commonality. And as an American, I'm just not as familiar with a lot of those actors as I could be.
yeah.
And I
Well,
think that
it's funny. A lot of
probably,
them do turn up on TV, like if you're kind of British, so you're kind of like, oh, it's him, and it's him, and it's that guy who was in that thing. So it is a bit kind of like strange watching it because yeah, most of them are pretty recognizable. Yeah,
yeah, and I think some of that they expect you to read a little bit into. Well, it's Patrick McNee, so this about it's Patrick McNee, so we don't need to tell you you know
yeah,
anything
sure
else.
him.
But if you don't come in with that context, it makes it a little more difficult to know who that guy is supposed to be. Where you do get a lot of setup with Niven and Peck and Moore, partially because the first third of the film is kind of an espionage film in a way of them going up to Gao and or Goa, and then them like taking out a chief spy and all the kind of things that are
Yeah.
happening up there. And then coming back
Although,
and with the needing to figure out how they're going to take out those ships.
although I feel like they're not very good. Like in that first bit where they try to kidnap the German guy, and then they accidentally shoot him. It's like I'm like, you guys are kind of crap, actually. So, which their boss does point out. He's like, a couple of idiots. You like kidnapped this guy and then didn't get any information out of him. But then I guess James Bond does that all the time. There was that joke in the Craig film was about him killing people before he had a chance to talk to them. Um,
Yeah,
and the guy I love.
but I mean, so it does have a lot going on. I mean, it's got kind of these different. The acts are very separate between like the kind of first espionage part, and then kind of the recruiting the cavalry, and then them on the boat, and then kind of that the final actual assault. Um,
I will say it doesn't really build momentum. Like I think the Wild Geese does,
mhm.
when they're trying to get on the plane at the end and defend the runway. I think that does build to that. Whereas with this one, almost like to me, the film kind of stops after, Roger Moore kind of, kills her, or she, or like at least deflects her knife and she kills herself. Um, because that, almost like that story strands over, and we don't need Roger Moore anymore. So he's just on the beach, waggling his eyebrow in a sad way. And then like I'm also like, so Trevor Howard's buried on the beach. I'm like, what happens when the tide comes in? So you can like uncover him. I'm like, I hope that's quite deep. They buried him there. But it's gonna float past, But then also, yeah, the last part on the ship where they're kind of like on the ship. I mean, that's okay, but it's a little bit sluggish, I think. Um, although I do like the fact that they can't start the engine of their boat. That does, like, it's funny because that's the ticking clock, it's like insert the ticking clock last minute to get a bit of suspense going.
Yeah.
But then they do, so and they drive off, so it's not that bad. They also have they kind of try to do a Richard Harris to a lesser extent, where they're like, oh no, Gregory Peck's been shot, but he's all right. In fact, he's even going, I can still swim, get off me, stop trying to help me.
Yeah, I won't disagree about that. And when the engine thing starts, you're like, this just feels like it was written in because someone felt they needed a little more tension at this point in the film, because they have successfully completed the mission. It's, I guess, if they were to just jump in the boat and drive away, you get that, you don't get that plussed tension there at the end. But it would have, I think, helped had they also told us a little bit more about the sea captains on that boat. Or something, because they just kind of become faceless, or they're just kind of stand-ins, cardboard stand-ins. And but I also think that's very like 2010 and on thinking, because that really wasn't something that people worried about a whole lot. Even if you look at movies like First Blood Part 2 and stuff, into the a little bit further into the 80s, it's not like anyone's worried about what the motivations are of the guys who are the evil German Russians who are running their secret camp.
You see Stephen Burkoff going, you can put up with a lot of pain. That's all you need. I'm going to start overacting. But I mean, the most kind of like recognizable German was actually the agent, because that was what's his name? Wolf Kahler, who plays the head German in everything from about 75 to 85, because he's in Raiders, of course, isn't he? He's one of the dudes that gets melted at the end.
Yeah.
So he always plays head German. So it's funny that they had him as the agent and then killed him off so quickly, because he would have probably been better as the captain of the ship.
They could only afford 3 days of Wolf Kahler, so
that's you joke, but that's pretty very true. He's available for on Saturday, so dress him up, put him in a taxi and shoot him. Well, apparently this film was 50% funded by Lorimer. Do you remember Lorimer? And they fell out with United Artists, who were the distributor. So Paramount jumped in. But then I guess because they picked it up, they didn't think much of it. So they didn't really distribute it properly. So this actually happened with Wild Geese as well. It's like, so they didn't really get a broad release in America. So I think in England, it definitely went on to become, one of those movies that's shown every holiday. I mean, I felt very at home watching it at Christmas, because I've seen it so many Christmases in the past. Because I think you were like laughing when we did Wild Geese, because you were saying in America they kind of watch Christmas films at Christmas, and I was like, in Britain we used to watch war films at Christmas. So a Christmas film for me is Where Eagles Dare, basically.
Right.
It's got snow in it. That's about as Christmassy as you're going to get.
Hey, Ingrid Pitt makes me feel jolly, so.
Shooting Nazis.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, should mention as well, I love the song Matt Monro does the song over the end credits, I think, These Precious Moments, which they might use as the love theme, I think, for Roger Moore as well. And he was kind of a crooner, like an old-fashioned 50s, 60s crooner in England. A bit like Nat King Cole. And you might recognize him because he also did the song at the start of The Italian Job on Days Like This.
Oh,
When
okay.
they're driving down the mountain. So
Yeah.
same dude. And another really nice song actually. So even at the time, a little bit old fashioned. I think in how it was presented.
Yeah, if you think about kind of what else was coming out around this time as far as action films, this definitely would have been um even comparing it to the Bond films and like I think Octopussy would have been pretty contemporary with this. But you also have Empire Strikes
Yeah.
Back coming out at this point.
And
And this
Raiders.
is really where the studios are headed as you head into the 80s. And that's how you get 84, 85, and that batch of movies. 80s still pretty early for all that. You're still getting a lot of cop movies and whatnot, Dirty Harry type
Yeah.
stuff. And so something like this, especially with something that Americans, I think, had their head around stuff like Battle of Britain a lot better than they were going to have their stuff around. Like, so these are guys from World War One who've been in India, which like, there's a lot of stuff for Americans to tie together. And
There's no American star either. So it's all English guys, old English guys.
well, I mean, you've got Peck, but he's trying to be British in it. And I mean, I'm not sure. I genuinely don't know what kind of box office draw he would have been at this point if you diluted it with this many British guys. I think Moore, of course, was a huge draw for Americans at this point.
That's true. That's true.
But I can say I have lived on this earth nearly 48 years, and you are the only person who has ever brought this movie up with me. It just is
I'm
not
honored.
a thing that got any traction here at any point. And
It's now
I'm
time
also I
because
would have been 5, like, so there's no way I would have been aware this movie was even coming out.
yeah.
So it would have
I
come
was
and
I was
gone.
also 5, but I was wearing my Second World War uniform when I used to watch this and saluting all the way through it. Um, I had pictures of David Niven on my bedroom wall in Gregory Peck.
Good night, David.
This is better than Superman 2. Superman 2's crap. Yes. No, it wasn't quite that bad. But I think definitely this is a film you could watch with your dad very easily. And it would have been a Sunday afternoon film, after lunch kind of thing. That you stick on and nobody's going to get offended by. Nobody's going to argue about this. Nobody's going to be quite happy watching it, really. Um, and also kind of an end of an era because I think all these guys as actors were kind of aging out. So probably this was like for them this was like a godsend in a sense because it's like, oh wow, this is kind of like not one of our last chances, but one of the few chances to all get together and like I say, probably catch up on old times, but also have fun and run around with machine guns, even though they're in their 60s.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And some of it works and some of it doesn't. I mean, I will not say that I think when they board, there's anything wrong with any of that. Like a guy with a gun, whether they're 12 or 65, dude with a machine gun in a well-planned attack, that it all made sense and all of that worked for me. The clever use of explosives and all that through the whole last third, I bought into all of that. The thing that was harder to
Yeah.
buy was like when Moore is going to bed with Mrs. Cromwell,
Yeah.
and then
Which
Gregory
actually,
Peck goes
the
for a
name, the
walk down
name.
to, what's that?
I was just going to say the name Cromwell. Like since I've watched it, I'm like, was that purposeful?
It
Like
had to have
Cromwell
been.
went against the king.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe.
That was why I thought I was like, that's a little on the nose, fellas, but
The dog's called
um,
Hamlet. That doesn't make any sense. It's
yeah.
just why he's black.
But yeah, then Gregory Peck goes down to the docks, and those 2 guys come after him to kill him with one a pocket knife between the 2 of them.
Yeah.
I'm like,
With a butter knife.
literally a heavy piece of wood would do you guys. Like, pick up anything
also-
that's laying around this dock, you're gonna have better luck than pulling out a pocket knife to go after him.
They also kind of warn him and take turns. They kind of
Yeah.
like go, you go first. And then when he beats you up, I'll have a go. It's like, that's not how you do it. That's the problem they always have with Michael Myers. They're like, you're going to all jump on him at the same time.
But yeah, it's that scene was particularly clumsy, I thought, and kind of almost drew attention to
like a half-hearted karate kick or something.
Yeah.
And that's enough.
One day we'll train Hollywood, because I just watched something where a 110-pound girl once again did a karate kick against like a 200-pound guy, and the guy goes sailing, and you're like, that's not how any of this works.
Well, that's the other side, isn't it? That's the problems we're having now with new movies, where it's like, I don't know who started it. Maybe Star Wars started with Rey, but even with Rey, at least she had the Force, I guess. But it's like, yeah, now it's like any small, female can beat up about five guys. It's like,
it's way before then. I remember watching an episode of Smallville, which started in 2001. 2000, yeah, I want to say 2001, 2002. And they in the second season, their lead female, like, they decided she was too helpless, so she was going to learn karate. Yeah. And she's like 110 pounds. She's like this tiny little person. And she's like kicking these guys who are like my size over. And I hate to say at the time I was taking karate, and I was like, well, it's not, I can tell you, like, if you're talking about scoring points, yes, like it's like fencing, and the touch, of course, gets you a point. But if you actually get into a real fight, you're not, nothing's happening there.
Yeah.
But kind of it's the same with Peck, like you were saying. Like, he's like on his back and does this kick into the air, and the other guy goes sailing, and you're like, Grandpa kicking at this wiry dude is going to do absolutely nothing. He's going to grab the ankle, and now he's got Peck. But whatever. It's I know why they did it. It's a perfectly cromulent scene. But
I mean, put it in context with the same year was Raiders of the Lost Ark, where you have that great fight underneath the plane with Pat Roach,
right?
Where Indy's kind of getting his ass kicked basically, and it's just him using his brain to kind of get out of it by ducking when the propeller comes around. Right. So if they'd have done something like that, that would have been a lot better. But I think obviously this production wasn't that, they didn't care that much about reality really. They were just like, just get him in and out of that situation, move on to the next scene.
Yeah, talking about reality, it is based on a true thing. I couldn't really tear apart fact from fiction. I just didn't find much on what actually happened, and maybe more. But
the only thing I really know is like that they didn't. I don't think they actually blew up the ships in the end. I think what happened was the Germans ended up scuttling their own ships. I don't know. So I guess to so they wouldn't get hold of the equipment. So I think the English did board them. But actually, the Germans were the one that sunk the ships on purpose, to kind of I don't know, get rid of the evidence maybe as well.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if there was even any explosives. Really, I'm sure there were a few, but I think it was like in the film, where it's like that's what did it. It was probably a lot messier and probably a lot less cinematic in real life.
Yeah, and they said even they were saying the body count was very, very low in the actual event. Like maybe 4 people died. But almost everybody else just swam to shore and was like, well, that's that. And
yeah.
I guess
it's funny. I think more of them get injured than actually Germans. I think when you watch the film, because they accidentally shoot each other and stuff, or like fall over. But I guess that's kind of saying, maybe this wasn't a good. That's a little bit of suspense, I guess. Maybe this wasn't a good idea because these guys are so old. But but then I guess they kind of they put it off just about. So well, yeah. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad you've seen it. I actually, like I say, this for me, I can definitely see the flaws. I'm not watching this rose tinted. I can see the cheesiness, like I say, with the houseboy running away very badly, and elderly stuntmen, and Barbara Kellerman's working class scream. But I also, do enjoy this. I think I'm a fan of Roger Moore, so anything with Roger Moore in, can't be all bad. And when you throw in, David Niven and a cast of TV faces, and I think it's always going to kind of like, put a smile on my face. And I do love those, last mission kind of movies. Maybe one last mission too much. Um, or are we too old for this shit in a Danny Glover way? It's I think
Yeah,
that's always
I think it really plays well on that in a very different way. Like these are more gentlemen than the Wild Geese is about
full
soldiers of
nursery.
fortune essentially. Yeah, and
Yeah,
these guys are officers. Like they're a more gentlemanly class, and so it just plays differently. It feels like a very different movie aside from some of the obvious beats. Um,
yeah.
but
Or just the
I
jokes, like when he swallows the whiskey and he goes, I honestly didn't mean to do that," and when they're supposed to be pouring on themselves. And then
yeah.
later on, I love is it Kenneth Griffiths, where he's like, like David Evans, like, "Start the bloody boat," and he's like, "I'm working very hard, Billy." They're kind of getting stressed out with each other because the engine won't start. But they're still trying to stay polite, which is very British. So
Right. Well, there's even the kind of touching scene between I think it's Niven and his wife, where he
yeah,
can't
that's very
say why
nice.
he's going, right? And he's clearly super excited about whatever's about to happen. Um,
Yeah,
and I mean, she is not wrong to think what she thinks. It's another
no,
woman, isn't it? I mean, um, and it's just heartbreaking with her. Like, I guess that's where we're at now. So he
yeah,
does get to do the romantic goodbye, to his wife and all that, which I thought was a nice, smart humanizing touch to the character.
yeah. And David Niven did, David Niven, cool, seemed to be in about 5 films a year around this point.
Mhm.
He'd pop up for 10 minutes in pretty much everything. Um, and it was always great to kind of see him. I mean, he pretty much essentially played the same, a bit like Roger Moore, the same person again and again. But it was always a pleasure to kind of see him in another thing, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking at the end of the movie, I'm curious if Niven ever was in a film with Basil Rathbone. I would
Mm,
I would love to see those two's energy against each other. So I'm going to do some digging and see if I can find a.
yeah,
I can't
yeah.
imagine casting them in the same movie, but
Well, they're almost too similar, aren't they? A little bit. They
yeah,
almost like they'd make really good brothers, probably.
yeah, they easily could have played relatives, brothers, um, and they both kind of have that gentlemanly air to everything they do. Even when Rathbone's being, a cad, uh,
Yeah.
it's I would be anyway. I'd be curious to go back and look, but they're separated by about I don't know 15 years.
Yeah. No, I was thinking that even early Niven would have been like probably the middle of Rathbone's career.
Yeah,
Yeah. There's got to be about 20 minutes, is that 20 minute, a 20-year difference between them, I think.
yeah. I mean, Rathbone's around early. I mean, he's like talkie's hit and he's there. Um,
Yeah.
so I mean, he's doing World War One aviator movies, in like the 30s. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure like how different the age is, but anyway, I'm gonna do some digging to see because I would like to see those two. They're two of my favorites. So um
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll have to dig out some more kind of like war movies because we kind of mentioned a couple before Christmas, and there's plenty that I mean I can think of about five off the top of my head straight away, which I'm sure about half of them you haven't seen. So maybe we could do
oh,
that.
probably all of them I haven't seen. So yeah, that they're more than welcome.
All the Roger Moore in, playing a very very slight variant on his previous film. When I say that he's got a different tie.
Right.
Uh,
But anyway,
well, yeah, well.
Thanks for bringing this, and I hope that folks are going to be joining us again through 2023. There's no grand plan for any major changes to the podcast as we roll into this year. But I'm hoping Simon and I will be back on it, and more to come for sure.
Yeah, and go watch the Seawolves. It's good.
Go watch the Seawolves. Thanks, man.
Bye.
Bye.
They are so few, the precious moments of our lives. They fade from view, and when they do, we try to live them anew. Which would they be, the precious moments of our lives?
That about wraps it up for this edition of The Signal Watch, a production of the League of Melbotus. Thanks for sticking with us. If you enjoyed the podcast, we invite you to drop on by the Signal Watch blog, where you'll find write-ups of a wide variety of movies and more. We'd love to hear from you, so find us online and let us know what you think. Whether you prefer email, blog comments, or social media, we'll be happy to hear from you. We'll be back soon with more exceedingly high-quality content. So, until next time, God damn it, babies, you've got to be kind.